Welcome back to the BHB, the Big House Breakdown. I'm your host, Vic. We're back again to do another installment of a game review of the Michigan Wolverines versus the USC Trojans and that big matchup that was. Didn't turn out the way Michigan fans wanted it to, the way I would have liked it to go. Welcome back to the show. So we're going to review the box score for the affair coming up shortly. Have to deal with some settings real quick, and then we'll get to it. Okay, cool. So we're back, and your Michigan man is back at it again. You know, hail to the victors, but we weren't victorious this weekend against the USC Trojans. We went all the way to SoCal, and we played a competitive first half. Did not end up the way we wanted it to, and we will get to the who, what, when, whys, and hows of the affair after we get into this box score. So the USC Trojans beat the Michigan Wolverines 31-13. Mayava had 265 passing yards, and they rushed for 224 rushing yards for a combined total on the game of uh, 489 total offensive yards. That might be our worst output to date. I'm not sure if Oklahoma would top that. I'd have to look into it. But this game resembled Oklahoma in a lot of ways. Michigan went for 207 passing yards and an improvement in the passing game, but not enough. And 101 rushing yards, which is extremely offsetting from what we normally do. 310 total yards. So, like I said, Mayava 25 of 32 for 265, two touchdowns and an interception. We really didn't take advantage of that. Underwood for Michigan threw for 15 for 24 for 207 yards, two touchdowns, and one interception. Rushing wise, Wayman Jordan wasn't that big of a factor, even though he did have an 11-yard scamper. King Miller came in and went 18 for 158, one score, and a 49-yard long scamper for a touchdown. And then Jordan Marshall came in, went 14 for 68, his long of 13. And Justice Haynes was 10 of 51 for a long of 13 yards. Underwood ran for 11 yards, and we'll get into the causations and what we could have done better there, because I think Underwood's legs could have helped us a little bit more in this game, and I think we shied away from that a little bit. And receiving wise, Lemon went 9 receptions for 93 yards, a touchdown, and a long of 28 yards. Lyons went 2 for 42 yards. McCree went 2 for 41 yards, and Lane, who they thought was going to be a huge factor, really wasn't. He went 5 for 39 yards, 5 receptions, 39 yards. Receiving wise, Michigan went 8 receptions for 138 yards and a touchdown, 69 long and touchdown for Andrew Marsh. Donovan McCulley went 3 for 39 yards and one touchdown, a long of 19. Jordan Marshall had a 16-yard scamper. Samaj Morgan went 1 for 7. Marlon Klein went 1 for 5. So on and so forth. Let's go to defense really quickly. I don't think Michigan's defense did anything miraculous. No sacks on the day. And as far as interceptions, I forget who got the interception on Michigan. Zeke Berry. Zeke Berry had that really, really nice interception mid-game. And I don't know. I don't think we did much with that particular one. We scored 1 touchdown in the third quarter and kicked 2 field goals or what amounted to 2 field goals, 6 points was amassed in the fourth quarter. So, with all of that being said, let's talk about the game inside the game. Well, on defense, Not sure what the game plan was for Wink, but it was a poorly executed one. Uh, I think that I think that whole ethic of scouting a team's first 15 plays in the first quarter, allowing them to matriculate down the field, go on long drives so that you can scout their first 12 or their first 15 plays. I think that's bunk. We need to stop that because if we didn't give up that first touchdown, the game would have been tied halftime. And I think USC did a great job of exploiting the weakness in a Wink Martindale defense, which is the slot position. Now, in the past, we had DBs in that slot position that could really, really take advantage of offenses like Mikey Sanderstill. And he was very good against the run, and he was very good versus the pass. This year, we're a little hybrid in that position. I don't think we have the utmost confidence in what we're doing with that position this year, and it shows. The screen game dented us as well. That was a good game plan by Lincoln Riley to take advantage of Michigan's aggressive D line play. Um, and also, the weakness in a Wink Martindale Raven style defense is how do you defend the slot receiver? So the slot DB is very pivotal because that's like the extra linebacker that's supposed to be out there. So they have to be good and run and pass. And then they also have to be able to uh, be a special player in those robber or bracket situations downfield to take advantage of receivers like Lemon, who like to from USC, who like to stretch the defense to the boundaries and catch passes, all the way on the other side of the field. So between the screens and the slot play, we sucked this weekend. It was bad for Michigan. Pause, right? Uh, Jay Sean Barham, he's our beast, and he was rendered literally ineffective with so much screenplay. And then when they did wanted to do, they also threw to run. They passed to run, and then by the time they started their running game downhill to hold on to a lead, Barham wasn't very good in the backfield with his technique, identifying with his eyes where the ball is, taking on pulling guards and pin and pulls, combo blocks. He just didn't have himself a good game in that regard. DBs. We got a scrappy bunch of DBs, and I feel like we could play a little bit more man zone mix than we do. A lot of this catch man, a lot of this, pass off zone that we do, so that we can give our D line an opportunity to, wreak havoc. It works, but then it could be your Achilles heel, like, uh, Jaden Sanders in the end zone that one particular time. If he'd have got his head around, he might have been able to pick that ball off. But, I think he was so concerned with kind of making a mistake in that moment that he wasn't athletic at the point of attack. And if one thing is going to drive me nuts, man, as a critiquer, as a football coach, a person who's played football for a very long time, these free releases off the line of scrimmage are driving me nuts. Especially with a dude like Lemon. He should never, if he's lining up in the slot, he should never get a free release. A linebacker should be bumping him if you're playing zone. A DB should be, putting a hand on his shoulder pad and rocking him off his route. They should never get free releases. And I see that way too much in modern football. And it gives these really good receivers a head start, or they'll give them like 9-yard cushion, so they don't get, so they, I don't know if they're like a two zone or a man's one, cover one or whatever they're in. They give way too many free releases, and it's killing them. It's really, or maybe they're in a three, and they're in that kind of, bail technique. They give them way too many free releases, and there needs to be a mix in there so that these receivers don't know. They should be always on their toes. They should be thinking about how they're going to get off the line of scrimmage just as much as they're thinking about how they're going to execute the play that's called. And I just don't think that USC wide receivers had that issue. Now, the I told you so in this particular episode is I told you guys last week that in the preview that USC had some line issues. They had some line issues at center because the center position will rock with injuries, and they were just getting Page back at left tackle, and they needed to attack that in order to secure a victory and get Mayava on his horse and get him moving around and feeling uncomfortable in the pocket. And there were times where we did that. There were times when that happened, and there were times when we weren't as effective with that as we should have been. I thought more. I thought it would be more along the edge of what happened during the Nebraska game. That's what I kind of thought we were gonna kind of come out and do. I think we should have did that from the first drive, the first series of the game, not just down the line or after we scouted their first 12, first 15. That's a mistake. I'll say that again. We have to stop doing that. We have to stop giving teams momentum on us right off the rip because we don't have an offense yet that can come back from things like that. So that's another thing. Continue it on. And our corners, you see that our receivers had a fairly good day. Marsh did his thing. And, I think there could have been better communication and flow between Bryce Underwood and McCulley. And that's fine. But then you have to know what passes are your better go tos when you're getting opposition from DBs and safeties. And what are the plays that your number one receivers can run that will ultimately, progress your offense down the field? What will get you past the sticks every time from your number one receivers? What are those plays? Identify them and execute them. And just on defense in general, USC's slot pass game and screen efficiency opened up the run game in the second half. And that's why King Miller kind of just, really they played bully ball with us in the second half because we were so concerned about the slot game and the screens that, they had us turning. And that's what happens to defenses. Defenses start getting turned, they start backing up. Safeties start to back up a little bit. And then once they back up, then you can obviously see that it's time to run the ball. So let's talk about offense in this 31-13. I won't say debacle, but mishap, right? 2-score game, right? The run game was moving in the first half, and it was just unfortunate that Justice Haynes went down. I heard he could have came back in, but it was like precautionary to kind of keep him out. I thought that we could have done more long form play action in the first half from under center with Bredesen and Justice Haynes, and maybe gotten some of our receivers downfield or at least showed a threat of a downfield passing game, which would have, had those safeties moving back. They wouldn't have been able to stack the line anymore. And we didn't really even take advantage of spreading them out as much because as soon as we did that, Bryce Underwood broke out of there for a nice 11-yard run when we spread them out. And we were in way too much 12 personnel for my liking against a team who has weaknesses in when you spread them out. I know we had to max protect to, keep Bryce Underwood upright, but our tight ends in the passing game was a deficiency. We didn't have enough, drags, enough tight end wheels, enough of the tight end presence on the field to make a significant dent in the game itself. I think they said Marlon Klein had one pass in the whole game. I didn't see Hogan Hansen have any contribution to the passing game. And those are two tight ends that can run that are very dynamic. And I don't know if that was on purpose for max protection, or did we just not game plan for that enough, or we didn't have faith in it enough as a coaching staff to get our tight ends involved. But we could have spread them out a good amount and taken advantage of that with Underwood's legs. And also, we didn't see enough of Underwood's legs in the running game. So as soon as Haynes got hurt, that should have been a sign that Marshall and Underwood should have got going as that double-headed threat in the backfield. A lot more read option should have been incorporated. A lot more power, a lot more QB draw, QB power. We didn't see enough of that. And I just think the lack of creativity in offense kind of was the undoing for the offense in the game. Um, and I understand what was going on with, maybe our offensive line wasn't responding the way we wanted it to. I didn't see us really getting a push on a lot of plays. Our response to adverse game conditions was poor. And that's the second time that's happened. That's happened against um, Oklahoma, and now it's happened against USC. And there were obvious moments where we could have taken advantage of USC's aggressiveness in their front seven to have some more, I guess, you know, advantageous, execution down the field. And those sort of, I guess, off balance play calling or play calling to keep them off balance was not being called by Chip Lindsey. And I'm not sure. I'm not a coach. I'm not sure what was going on in real time on the field. And I know there's a lot that goes on in real time on the field that doesn't give the coach the confidence and the faith that you could run some creative stuff because we're not even doing the basics right. So maybe that was a factor. Um, you know, and we got to get more creative in those situations because we won't always have a lead. We won't always have momentum as a team. Our front seven won't always get there. So how do we respond when what we do is only working a quarter of proportional in the game at a proportional rate? It works part of the time and sometimes it doesn't. And you have to battle your way through those moments. How do we come back from those odds in the game? Hasn't shown itself to date. So that's something that, the Michigan coaching staff that we have hasn't really been that successful this year in doing. They need to be a lot more um, present of mind within those things and game plan for those things during the week. So just in case we come across a front seven like Wisconsin, like USC, where they're doing a lot of, run control blitz, they're doing a lot of, their run fits are really good. How do we combat that? How do we move that? How are we creative enough in our offensive game plan to take advantage of those things? And, we took our second loss of the year, but we on the bright side right here. That's why I got the bright side up. I'm always on the bright side. We have too talented of a team for us to not rebound from this. We can still go 10-2. We have to run the table now. We actually can based on our schedule. We just have to be more creative in adverse conditions. When we start to get a little bit stagnant, we need to get a little more creative to get us out of those stagnant situations. And what a lot of teams are seeing is that they could just load the box up with 7 or 8, and we don't have the creativity in the passing game or the run game or the East and West kind of creative offensive, design to take advantage of a front seven that's going to be really aggressive in their run fits and really pin their ears back versus the pass. And we have to, like I always say every week on the game, we got to get more out of our special teams. We got to be able to flip the field a little bit with our kick return game and our punt return game. We're not flipping the field at all this year. I don't see that happening at all. And that has to be a factor. Even during our championship run, and Samaj was our punt returner, say what you want about him dropping the ball every once in a while, he was flipping the field. He was getting us past the 50 so that we would set up in favorable down and distance and we could take a shot or run the ball and be very effective. So, playing Washington next week will be a perfect opportunity against a team that's not really designed to burn you up and down the field to get some of our creative plays under our belt, experiment, get some of these things going. So as we face our rival in Michigan State and we face our other rival in Ohio State, we have full faith that we can move the ball in some unique ways and in some unique game and game situations. We have to improve on adverse game situations. All right, y'all. So that's gonna do it. Make sure you guys are gonna like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment about this breakdown and this review of the Michigan Wolverines versus the USC Trojans and all that is encompassed in that particular game. Was I right? Was I wrong? Was I on? Was I strong? Was I not on point at all? Do you just see it as a complete coaching failure? Or can we rebound and be better and stay on the bright side? See y'all on Friday for the game preview of Michigan and Washington. Until then, and as always, peace and go blue.